Hello and welcome to the Two Man Booth, your weekly scheduled podcast on the crazy world of professional wrestling. With me, Jonathan.
And me, Adam. And we will start this week slightly differently because we're just going to tell you what these next couple of podcasts are going to be like. So this is our Stomping Grounds review podcast. It's come a little later than originally planned just due to scheduling issues. So what we're going to do on this podcast is we're going to run through all the news from this week. We will review Stomping Grounds, we'll go through any other business, and then we will do our final segment, which is the predictions. Big smile on my face right now.
Ugh.
Just as a spoiler alert there. And then on the next podcast, which we will be recording later on this evening, we will discuss the usual stuff, Raw, SmackDown, 205 Live, NXT. We will not do any news, we will not do any other business, and then we will have a massive final segment that will focus on the first piece of news from the day, which we're going to talk about briefly, and then we'll do the final segment in the podcast later on.
Because it is big news.
It's huge news. So what we're starting with in the news is the fact that Paul Heyman has been named Executive Director of Monday Night Raw and Eric Bischoff has been named Executive Director of SmackDown Live. Now, this to me, I don't want to overstate this, but this is the biggest creative shift in WWE in decades.
Yeah, probably since like Russo.
Yeah.
I would argue.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a total change, and I would argue that it was very much needed. Like a creative change was needed. Obviously, we'll discuss this in much more depth later, but whether this is the correct creative change, I don't know. I certainly think that Heyman is a very positive change. Like I don't. If Heyman's given as much creative control as we would all as wrestling fans like him to have, and he's motivated, I certainly think that Raw could be very entertaining moving forward. Obviously, Eric Bischoff on SmackDown, like the last time that we saw Eric Bischoff have any kind of creative role in a company, he always says he didn't have that much to do with it, but was TNA.
And that did not go that well.
And he
while
always
he was
claimed
there.
he had very little to do with it, but like, come on.
The only time when Bischoff was still there that TNA actually got good was when, ironically enough, Bruce Pritchard was in charge of the show.
Exactly.
In that run during 2012, which was really, really well booked and was actually a really, really good year of TNA.
Yeah.
But I don't know, there's just something, and like you said, we'll talk about this in more detail on the final segment, but for me, the big question is, which we'll leave hanging in the air for years until we discuss this on the later podcast, is how much are they going to be in control?
Yeah, how much control does Vince have still?
At the end of the day, if it's still going to be Vince at the top and he's still going to be making all of the decisions and they're just running stuff through him, then nothing much is going to change. Mm-hmm. If, on the other hand, they're given quite a bit of creative freedom and they just have to go to him with a, here is Raw, here is SmackDown.
Sign this, Vince.
Sign it off.
Yeah.
You know, he can still have his input, but if he's not micromanaging every segment, it'll probably make things better.
And then it really will be such good stuff.
We can get away from the fact that we have to do no wrestling during commercial breaks and we're doing 2 out of 3 falls matches and elimination matches which make no sense, and just the whole product that, well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that on the next podcast when we run through Raw and SmackDown. Anyway, moving on. So the next bit of news is Evolve's 10th anniversary celebration show will be airing live on the WWE Network on July 13th.
When's it running?
It will be going head-to-head with AEW's Fight for the Fallen.
Like
so
anyone is going to... I love Evolve, but like anyone is going to tune into that instead of All Out. Also, Fighter Fest.
You know, WWE putting independent shows on the network is something I've advocated for quite a long time and think it is something... Yeah, absolutely. They've got all these companies that they've got relationships with. Take advantage of that. There is people out there that will pay to see all those things in one place, and it's just another little additive to sell your network.
Better, yeah.
But the one thing that really rubs me the wrong way about this one, and if they'd done this, if Evolve's 10th anniversary celebration show was going up against Fighter Fest tonight, wouldn't have a problem with it. It's wrestling. If you want to counter program, go ahead, do it. WWE did it in sort of with the Survivor Series going up against WCW and it's Starrcade.
That was the whole point of Survivor Series.
You know,
and they sold it so that you didn't, if you know, for pay-per-view companies, if you didn't host Survivor Series, you didn't get Mania.
Yeah.
So there was all the motivation in the world.
Yeah, so it was JCP, not WCW, but in general point. But so I have no problem with counter programming. The thing that rubs me the wrong way is this is a charity show. That's what's really sort of grained my teeth on this one a bit, and I just feel like it's a bit tasteless, and unnecessary. They didn't have to do that, and like you say, it's not going to make a big impact. I think the majority of people will be flocking to watch that Fight for the Fallen show, and the people that are watching the Evolve show would probably have watched it on Fight TV or wherever Evolve would have streamed it anyway. You're not probably drawn anybody else away from that AEW show, and why would you really want to?
And let's be clear, like, it's not as if this is not All Out. Like, this is not an A show for AEW either, which shows how worried WWE are. But like, this is not All Out. It is, it's Fight the Fest, Fight for the Fallen. Like, this is not. It's not an A show.
No, but you know what? We've just had a go at WWE from a sort of almost a PR perspective. That's not how I want to put it, but just in terms of what they've done in terms of counter-programming against Fight for the Fallen. I do want to say one really positive thing about them from this week, though. There was a really classy move on their part to allow some of their talent from the UK brand to work the Lionheart Memorial show that PCW held last night. Absolutely. That was such a cool move. I heard it was a really emotional and well-received show, so props to PCW for that. And ICW have also set up a GoFundMe to help with Lionheart's funeral costs, so you can donate to that if you desire. It's for a really great cause.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, like, on the whole, like, WWE do tend to get those kind of things right. And obviously, we talked about it last week, but obviously our thoughts still go out to Lionheart's family.
Without a doubt. And sadly, from something so poignant and something really nice that WWE have done, we've got to move on to something completely moronic. And that is the ongoing Seth Rollins meltdown.
I am an idiot on Twitter.
Yeah. So it started off with, and I want to defend him a little bit to start with.
Yeah, because I don't blame him.
It started off with him saying, we are the best pro wrestling on the planet, we're the premier pro wrestling on the planet, however he phrased it.
Being the company guy.
He is the face of the company right now. Him and Becky are the face of the company. I totally understand going out there and going to bat for your company, especially one as overtly criticised as WWE.
Totally.
So I've got no problem with that.
Neither did I.
Where I kind of lost it with Rollins is he got into a Twitter spat with Will Ospreay, and Ospreay was being a bit cheeky, Rollins said something to the effect of, if you find me someone alive who does what I do as regularly as I do, as good as I do, tell me. And Ospreay just replied, I'm alive. And,
But let's be clear. Like, Will Ospreay is the best wrestler in the world this year.
Like, without doubt.
He's wrestler of the year so far.
Absolutely. No doubt in my mind. But so it got into a bit of a spat between those two. And, at first it was just banter, and I didn't really sort of think, Seth saying I'm better, Ospreay saying he's better. Fine, go for it. If you are a top guy in a company and you don't believe you're the best in the world, you're doing something wrong. Rollins absolutely should believe he is the best in the world. He is at the top of the mountain in WWE. He should believe he's the best in the world. So I have no problem with that.
Agree.
Where I lost a lot of respect for Rollins was when he went, well, let's compare bank accounts.
I earn more money than you.
He lost the argument because somebody pointed out that actually Ospreay had wrestled more matches than him this year.
Yeah.
And at that point, he stopped trying to say anything like that. He'd brought Ricochet into the argument already.
Yeah, he was saying, like, well, Ricochet is better than you.
Yeah,
and, like,
we've already got a better version of you.
I love Ricochet, but, like, Ospreay at the moment is better than Ricochet as well. I don't think you can really argue about that. No. And I like Ricochet.
But it was almost like he was having an argument over who was better, Seth Rollins or Will Ospreay, and he brought Ricochet into it, which to me was just weird. And then he brought his bank account into it, and at that point, to me,
didn't it?
He totally lost my respect there, and I've lost a little bit more for him since some comments he's made about Moxley as well since. So
there were rumours that he was like pressured into saying that.
Yeah.
He was kind of saying along the lines of like,
well, I've got the quotes just so we can get it right and we're not misquoting anybody. So basically what Rollins said was, Ambrose can do what he wants. He's a big boy. He's got his big boy pants on. He can go out there and say whatever he wants. But the bottom line is not everyone is equipped to handle the rigours of the WWE and the schedule and how it affects you mentally and emotionally. And he said Ambrose gave everything he had to the company for the entire time he was here. He put his heart and soul into the travel and the schedule and the injuries and the work in the ring and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, he took his ball and he went home, or he went elsewhere at least. And he thinks it's a little presumptuous of Moxley to get on a podcast and talk down about the company that gave him such opportunities. And he referenced some of these. He did talk about how he was thankful for the time he spent here and the fact that he was able to learn, meet his wife and all that good stuff. Like I said, I love the guy. I love him. I'll always love him. But at the end of the day, we share differing perspectives about what we want out of life and where we're at in our own lives. I just feel like that was unnecessary.
Didn't need to say it, did he?
Yeah, if you went to if we work for a wrestling company, you went to a different company and we're really good friends, like, I wouldn't say that about you.
Yeah, because it shouldn't affect your friendship working together. And Ambrose was very clear on the podcast that Rollins and Reigns, like, they weren't happy about what he was doing, but he was like, at the end of the day, like, they supported me.
Yeah.
But then this doesn't really sound so much like Rollins is actually supporting Ambrose, and in a vacuum, this may not have been so bad. But with everything else that Rollins has done this week, it has very much changed my attitude and my opinion of him as a person.
Yeah, the one thing that stood out to me as well was he said that for Moxley to go out there and complain about the company that gave him all these opportunities, Rollins has spent all week running down the independent scene.
Where did he get?
Where did he come from? Because I'm not being funny. Even before he got his break in ROH, he got his break in IWA Mid-South and all those kinds of places. They made Tyler Black who he was, and he went to Ring of Honor. And there's a whole host of credit has got to go.
Gabe Sapolsky.
Yeah, but there's a whole host of credit that's got to go to Seth Rollins as well, because he's made himself who he is today, and I'm not taking anything away from him.
Austin Aries for the feud that they had.
Yeah, that had its rough moments.
Yes.
And the belt went on him too late and everything, but still, Ring of Honor made him the person he was, and the heel turn actually was phenomenal, and actually was the first time I saw character on the microphone come out of Tyler Black, because before then he'd been very charismatic in the ring. He was very Jeff Hardy-ish,
but a whiny voice babyface.
Yeah, and just not very good on the mic, but that heel turn really worked for him, and that whole process was what got him signed to WWE and is why he is where he is today. So for him to go out there and say Moxley shouldn't be burying WWE when he's out there burying the independent scene, like, you can't have it both ways. So. Yeah. And by the way, this is not just us saying, you've got to accept criticism of WWE, but we don't accept criticism of anything else. Because, I went on Twitter the other day and I saw a tweet from Mandy Leon from Ring of Honor saying that people should always be positive about wrestling companies. And I tweeted her back saying,
I saw what you said.
Absolutely not. You've got to be able to take criticism. I used the example of Chris Hemsworth. Do you think he goes out and, like, messages and gets really angry about everybody who doesn't like Infinity War? No, he understands that criticism's part of the business, and not everybody's going to like everything.
Because anything that's an art form or media is critiqued. Like, otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, if you make stuff and just assume that everyone's going to go like, yeah, this is great. Like, otherwise, what's the point in the creative process?
Just totally bizarre. So yeah.
Like, it just comes across as
weird from Rollins this week.
Yeah, it's been a weird week on Twitter in general. People being very defensive. It's been odd.
So Eli Drake has signed a deal with the NWA. He appeared at last night's Best in the World show for Ring of Honor. So interesting to see where they go with him.
Very interesting. I would imagine he'll have a feud with Aldous.
Well, he was his tag partner last night, but
that would seem logical, right?
He made reference in the pre-show about how he grew up in Baltimore and he saw all these guys with the 10 pounds of gold, and he wants to replicate that essentially.
I kind of love the NWA.
So do I.
Like, it's the fact that it's still something. Means quite a lot to me.
I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for it, even when it's just awful. I'll still have a soft spot in my heart for it. Jinder Mahal has signed a new 5-year deal with WWE, but will be out for quite a while after rupturing his patella tendon at a house show 2 weeks ago. Surgery is said to have gone very well, which is great news. We might not be the biggest Jinder fans in the world, but hate to see anybody injured. Glad his surgery's gone well. Glad he's got himself a new 5-year deal. Good for him.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And I don't want to talk about this too much, but in the ongoing saga that is CM Punk's personal life, he is now counter-sued Colt Cabana for the suing that Colt is doing to him.
I'd not seen this.
It's just typical legal stuff. Like, I've expected for a while, because when somebody sues you, you counter-sue, and usually both ends get dropped. That tends to be how it works in these kind of civil lawsuits. It's just depressing that this is where it's got to, because CM Punk and Colt Cabana's friendship was actually, like, awesome to me as a fan. Like, I loved how good friends they were,
and they were totally different people.
And to see it just completely fall apart and them just be totally estranged is really sad for me to see.
Of the podcast.
Yeah,
like, that's literally what it's because.
And I must admit, I do tend to fall on Cabana's side of the argument, and we're not going to get into any legal stuff because I don't want to get this podcast in trouble. But in terms of who do I believe is in the right, regardless of what the law thinks, I certainly believe Colt Cabana's in the right. And
I do, but I see aspects of Punk's side.
Well, it affects my viewing of Punk, because when you go out there and say, don't worry about it, I'll take care of everything, you've got to go out there and take care of everything. If I'm super rich and you're not, and we get ourselves into some kind of problem on this podcast, and I go, we're leaving it up there, I'll take care of everything, and then I don't, that's on me, not you.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just, it just leaves a sour taste in my mouth, unfortunately.
I agree on that.
But we will move on now to the final bit of news. Ricky Choshu has had his retirement show in Caracoan Hall, or at least his latest retirement show.
Yeah. I find it difficult to believe that Choshu's retired.
He is the Terry Funk of Japan, is he not? In terms of his retirement.
His career will not die.
Meltzer made a really good point, actually, the other day on The Observer when they were talking about this, that he's quite sad that this is what it's come to, because Ricky Choshu was having his retirement show in Caracoan in front of 1,800 people.
When in fact, if it was 15 years ago,
well, he did. He had I think it was his first retirement show. Yeah. They did it in the Tokyo Dome in front of 50,000 people, and it was huge.
People forget, obviously when wrestling was at its absolute peak in Japan in the 80s, that was really, in terms of its drawing power, its peak. Obviously in the 90s, it was massive in terms of mainstream appeal. But in terms of drawing, the 80s were huge. And Inoki was obviously a huge part of that. And across in all Japan, you'd have Saruta and Tenryu and Baba. But across New Japan and all Japan, Choshu's heel turn was a huge story.
You just got to look what he did for both companies. That was just what I was about to say. He was the thing that moved the sticks towards all Japan. In terms of them becoming a bigger company, he was massive for that. So anyway, at the retirement show, he teamed with Shiro Koshinaka and Tomohiro Ishii in a losing effort against Toge Makabe, Keiji Muto, and Tatsumi Fujinami. Makabe pinned Choshu. Standard fare, really.
It is, yeah. That sounds like it won't have been a great match, but it'll have been really fun.
Yeah. So with that, we will move on from the news onto Stomping Grounds, and we will start with the pre-show, which saw Tony Nese defend his Cruiserweight title against Akira Tozawa and Drew Gulak. There was a nice spot early when Nese used an O'Connor roll on Tozawa, and when Gulak tried to break it up, Nese hit a German on him, nearly pinning both men simultaneously. We went screen and screen here because, God forbid, there be wrestling during actual ad breaks on Raw and SmackDown, but it's fine during a title match on the pre-show. Gulak lariated Nese halfway to hell and then locked on the Gulak. Tozawa broke it up with a top rope senton onto both men. Nese hit a triangle springboard moonsault on Gulak for 2. Nese and Tozawa battled up top, but Tozawa knocked him into a trio of woe. Gulak then leaped to the top and hit a superplex on Tozawa, but Nese had pulled himself up to the top and went for a 450 on Gulak. Gulak moved and went for a pile driver, but Nese reversed and hit the crunchy, which Tozawa broke up at 2 with a Shining Wizard. Nese hit running Nese on Gulak, but Tozawa rolled him up from behind for 2. They traded pin attempts until Nese hit a deadlift buckle bomb for 2. Nese hit a German suplex into the buckles, but Gulak countered the running Nese and sent Nese onto the apron. Gulak moved as Tozawa wiped out Nese with a shotgun dropkick before Gulak hit the torture rack neckbreaker on Tozawa for the win. Great match, and you know what? The crowd was into it from the very beginning and went nuts for everything, and it was awesome to see. Great match. Match of the night. Drew Gulak's Cruiserweight champion, which is great. Everything about this was spot on.
Totally agree. Great match. Easily matched the night. Awesome back and forth between the three of them throughout the whole match. And I've said for a long time, haven't I, on this podcast, about how I've seen Gulak as a main eventer in 205 Live. And now he finally is. And although I'm disappointed that I lost this match in the predictions, I'm really, really happy for Drew Gulak. He's deserved it for ages. He's been really, really big part of 205 Live since the start, pretty much, and he's deserved it. And it'll be interesting to see what now happens regarding Tony Nese chasing the title back, but we shall see. But I have really, really, really enjoyed his run towards title, his short reign now with the title, and we'll see how Gulak does as champ.
Without a doubt, and, like you say, Nese's run's been fun, but he kind of was running out of challenges, so I think they've pulled the trigger at the right time.
He was losing steam.
Yeah.
He was losing steam.
Be interesting to see who the build up to beat Gulak in the end. I think you can have a quite considerable title run because there's a lot of people out there you can have matches with. I imagine there is some kind of rematch coming up with Nese, which I actually know there is because it's been announced for Extreme Rules. There will be Jack Gallagher as a really good option for him. Humberto Carrillo is a really good option for him. Chad Gable's a really good. There's a lot of babyfaces. Akira Tozawa.
Yeah,
we should always be in that conversation because dude's just phenomenal.
I'd build Humberto towards it.
Split up Lucha House Party and strap the Rocket to Mascara Dorada.
Yeah,
just phenomenal athlete, deserves so much more. There is so many babyfaces into it. I'm really excited for this Drew Gulak title run.
Yeah, same.
So with that, we will move on to the main show, and we opened with the man. She was taking on Becky Lynch. She was taking on Becky Lynch. She was taking on herself. She was taking on Lacey Evans.
The man took on Becky Lynch.
Yeah. There was a rough spot earlier as Becky hit an elbow on Lacey and then went for her springboard kick, but Lacey was in the totally wrong postcode, so Becky had to wait for her to get into position and jump up and hit it a second time. She did not look pleased after that spot. It is easily the most annoyed I've seen Becky in quite a while. Lacey got the heat and worked over Becky's midsection. She put Becky on the top, but Becky fought her off and rolled off the top into an armbar. Cole called every armbar in this match to disarm her, and Corey had to repeatedly correct him. It was infuriating.
Oh, he just doesn't know anything, does he?
Lacey gets cocky but pays for it as Becky shoves Lacey's hanky into Lacey's mouth. She runs wild and the Bexploder gets two. She goes for the leg drop but Lacey rolls to the apron. She goes for the slingshot elbow but Becky gets the knees up. They trade counters and Lacey hits an awkward looking Dudley dog for two. Lacey headed up top but Becky yanked her off and grabbed to disarm her as Lacey tapped instantaneously. This was okay and the crowd absolutely loved Becky. Nothing wrong with it. Almost a solidly average match is probably the best way I can put it.
Yes, it was extremely average and probably the best match that Lacey's capable of at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, she's not good in the ring.
She's not.
And Becky really, really, really should be working with better people.
She should.
I haven't booked lots of my women's division booking yet, but like, I'll put it this way, I have not put Becky with Lacey straight after Mania.
There is better options on Raw.
I had Becky defend against Charlotte still at Money in the Bank. I did the double
title match.
And I think I had Carmella.
Yeah.
Purely just because Carmella won the women's
Battle Royal.
Get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Basically. But it's better than Lacey.
Absolutely. We get a superhero-esque video package on Ali, which was really cool. And then Kayla catches Heyman coming out of Corbin's locker room. She wants to know if he's a special ref and if Brock is here. Heyman leaves without really answering, and Corbin comes out insinuating Kayla wants some. Yeah, right. Corbin says he's chosen someone who is unbiased because he doesn't need any help, he just needs a competent ref. Okay?
Sure.
Next up, we had The New Day versus Dean Jericho. The heels ran wild immediately and destroyed Woods before Owens hit a Swanton for two. Sammy came in, hit a Blue Thunder Bomb for two. KO came back in and hit a Frog Splash for two. The heels then settled into a slightly slower pace after trying to finish the match off early and continued to isolate Xavier. I did love that they totally changed up the standard formulaic WWE tag match by just having, like, they just went wild from the bell. Move, pinfall attempt. And yes, they went and got the heat because that's what you got to do in a tag match. But it was nice to see something different at the start of a WWE tag team match. It was just different.
Anything they do that is different is great because they don't do it often enough.
Yeah. So Xavier eventually fights back, but Sammy takes out Big E. KO comes in, but he misses a senton, and Xavier gets the hot tag to E. E runs wild, but Zayn fights back. He goes for a tornado DDT, but E just tosses him. He falls with a rock bottom for two. Xavier tags back in and shows incredible strength by picking up Big E on his shoulders and throwing him onto Zayn. That was just insanity. That gets two, as does a twisting leg drop. New Day set up for the up, down, down, but Zayn slips out and posts Big E. Xavier eats a kick on the way down. KO blind tags in as Zayn hits the Huluva kick on Woods. He falls straight into a pop-up powerbomb from Owens for an absolutely fantastic near fall that I totally bit on. Everyone hits a move on each other and they all go down. Zayn recovers to the apron, but E hits the suicide spear. Woods heads up top, but Owens crotches him and follows with the stunner for the win. This was a really fun tag match with Owens and Zayn picking up a badly needed victory. Good stuff all round. Really good.
Totally agree. And although I went with New Day in the predictions, I think it definitely was the right decision. That, like, Zayn and Owens needed something.
Yeah.
Or maybe they can get like a genuine tag push because they haven't been tag champs yet, have they?
I don't think so.
And I'd love to see Dean Jericho as tag champs. We actually booked it in our own booking. We said we were going to bring them back as babyfaces, didn't we? After Mania.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
we had them beat the Revival, didn't we?
And they were going to face Revival. Yeah, it would have been awesome.
Yeah. So we see Alexa and Nikki backstage as Alexa continues to manipulate Nikki in the most obvious way. Alexa says, tonight it's them against the world. And then we had the on-paper best match of the night, which turned out to be probably the best match on the main card.
Yeah, I would suggest so.
As Samoa Joe defended his United States Championship against Ricochet. They battle back and forth early before Joe takes control on the floor. back in and Ricochet eats the ST Joe, which gets 2. Joe continues working him over until Ricochet fights back, but Joe almost immediately levels him with an absolutely brutal looking and sounding forearm. They replayed it in slow motion. And you know how in WWE they'll do the whole thing where they replay it in slow motion, but just before the impact it goes back to full speed? They did not do that because they did not need to, because Joe hit Ricochet that hard in the face. It was awesome. And it made this crunching noise. It was great. Oh. Yes. So he follows up with a rope-assisted sit-out powerbomb for 2. Joe continues his domination until Ricochet flips off his chest and catches him with back-to-back enziguris. Ricochet runs wild on Joe. He sends him to the outside and follows with the twisting tope con hello. He rolls Joe back in and hits a springboard missile dropkick, followed by a lion salt for 2. His momentum is cut short when Joe catches him with the snap slam for 2. They have a strike battle, but Joe looks for a dragon before transitioning and hits a German. Joe falls with a murderous lariat for 2. Ricochet fights out of a choke attempt, but Joe catches his bicycle kick attempt and flips him for like 63 revolutions in just an absolutely great spot. Like, it just seemed like Ricochet was flipping for days.
Yeah.
The crowd audibly gasped at that spot as well, which was great. Joe goes for the choke again, but Ricochet uses the ropes to get the apron and fight free by dropping Joe's neck across the top rope. Ricochet heads up top but has to roll through on the 630 attempt. Joe tries to kill Ricochet with a lariat again, but Ricochet flips out of it this time, hits the single leg cord breaker and follows with the 630 for the surprise win in a really good match. Thoroughly enjoyed this. You know, don't have a problem with Ricochet winning the title. Didn't expect it.
I was just surprised, yeah.
Don't have a problem with it. And it was just thoroughly enjoyable. They went out there and had it was a WWE match, but with elements of their outside work, if you know what I mean, in the sense of they never went out of the bounds, and I didn't go like you remember Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sami Zayn from
and you were like,
from
that's a New
Takeover,
Japan match.
where I was just like, this is a New Japan match, and Zayn has just worked a New Japan match with Shinsuke Nakamura. They've just done it in a WWE ring.
Yeah.
This was a WWE match, but they were just really stiff. Like, they worked really snug. Everything was 100 miles an hour. So it was still within the confines of the WWE style.
But it felt different enough.
It felt different enough, and it was really, really fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was really surprised by it, but not in a bad way. I'm okay with them throwing in the odd curveball in there, because otherwise it becomes very predictable. And I'll be interested to see where Ricochet goes, because obviously he felt very directionless in the last month or so. Now that he's got a title, we'll see how it goes. Because
obviously we'll recap Raw on the podcast later on, but he faced AJ and lost to AJ in the main event of Monday Night Raw in a pretty good match, and it does look like
it was really good.
Yeah, does look like we're probably going to get AJ versus Ricochet at Extreme Rules. Maybe a 2 out of 3 falls match that'll actually make sense.
That'll actually, yes,
you know, because AJ's already beaten him, so Ricochet could ask him to prove that he's the better man by beating him 2 times out of 3.
Be really
There's
good.
ways to go with it. But either way, I think that'll be a great match.
Same.
And I don't know about you, and we'll cover Raw properly, but do you feel like possibly an AJ heel turn's coming?
Yeah, I feel like we're getting a Bullet Club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a heel Bullet Club.
Yeah.
Rather than just,
Because that's what it
AJ
should
Gallows
be.
and Anderson are friends.
That's what it should be.
Yeah. So, could be interesting. We'll see where they go with it.
Like, they just need to recruit, and it needs to be done carefully.
Yeah.
We should talk about that.
It's a shame the club are not on SmackDown, because if anybody has a history of doing a heel faction running roughshod over the entire company, it's Eric Bischoff. Just saying.
Yeah, good point, actually.
So post-match, Ricochet is congratulated backstage by a bunch of babyfaces and, for some reason, Charlotte. Otis Dozovic is a gift we do not deserve, as he grabs Ricochet and says, "I love you, Richie. I love you." He is just like, I love Otis Dozovic beyond life itself.
Part of me genuinely thinks though that was just like
Otis being Otis.
that way. Yeah, he wasn't working there. It was just cheap.
Yeah, well, wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Hunter then tips up to hug Ricochet too in a really nice moment.
Did they then do the pause for the picture?
Not
that
on
would have been
screen.
Awesome.
Not on screen.
That would have been so cool.
So next up, we had Heavy Machinery's matches. They took on our SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Planet Champions. Bryan is over as a rover. The crowd was great all night, I have to say, at least until the final few minutes. Like, final few matches killed their joy.
Those of them that were there.
But they were great here. We had chance of We Recycle, Drive a Prius, Captain Planet, all kinds of good stuff. In Rowan T-shirt watch, he was actually wearing a tee of a band I'd never heard of before, in Solstafir. I googled them and they categorised themselves as atmospheric Icelandic rock and roll. Yeah, that's out there.
They need Pearl when he wears Pearl Jam. That's when he's like officially.
Spoiler alert for when we recap Raw, he wore a Soundgarden t-shirt, so that's possibly
getting closer.
Possibly the closest we're going to get to Pearl Jam.
The babyface of my heart.
Yes, the match was pretty good too. Past sort of Rowan's t-shirts.
Oh yeah, there was a wrestling match. I forgot about that.
Rowan and Bryan isolated Tucker early and worked him over in a nice heat segment. Rowan went for a corner spear on Tucker, but he moved, which allowed him to get the hot tag to Otis, who ran wild, much to the chagrin of the crowd. Bryan retakes control and hits a couple of corner dropkicks, but gets caught going for the third and eats a pop-up sit-out powerbomb, which gets 2. The Vader bomb misses, and Bryan lays in the yes kicks. They have little effect on Otis, though, who absorbs them and hits a leg capture belly-to-belly. He hits a clothesline, and Otis realises where Bryan is and hits the caterpillar elbow, which actually pops the crowd a little. Against Bryan, they managed to pop the crowd.
Yeah.
Tucker tags in and they hit a double team, but Rowan makes the save. Tucker hits a pretty decent moonsault given his size. Bryan does move, but kind of slightly gets caught by the legs, but it was fine. Rowan and Otis come in and they trade strikes, shoulder tackles and lariats. Bryan blind tags in as Otis showcases insane strength by catching Rowan, who was going for a running crossbody, and hits a world's strongest slam. Heavy machinery sets up for the compactor, but Bryan lowbridges Tucker. He then hits a top rope knee on Otis. He goes for the tope on Tucker, but gets caught with forearm. Tucker takes out Rowan with a top rope crossbody to the outside, but when he gets back in, Mr. Small Package strikes again as Bryan and Rowan retain their titles. Really, really good match with the right result. I just loved everything about this. The crowd loved Bryan. They didn't try and turn him heel. They just let them go out there, work a really good match. They didn't ruin Heavy Machinery because they give them enough cool stuff. They did get booed a little bit in bits and pieces, but not to the point where they were going to be ruined. And Otis is just charisma personified. Like, seriously, strap the rocket to that man.
Yeah, he is.
Like, he's awesome.
And Mr. Small Package is back.
I know.
They need to make that a thing again because in ROH it was awesome.
Yeah, Mr. Small Package. Unbelievable. So at this point, I was thinking this could go on to become an all-time great show, and then I remembered that Baron Corbin was in the main event. But seriously, the event was massively outperforming expectations at this point.
Could you see the could you see the cliff?
Not at this point,
because just in the horizon there was there's no ground there, and we're walking towards it, and there's a man stood there, and he's gonna wrestle in a shirt. Who is this man?
He looks like a waiter,
and. I can hear music, and that appears to be the only good thing about it.
So, I watched most of this pay-per-view live on Sunday night, and then I watched the next match, which is Bayley versus Alexa.
You masochist. You stayed up to watch a WWE pay-per-view.
But I went to bed after watching Bayley versus Alexa, and I was like, oh, that's an awesome show. This is a really, really good show. And then I got up and I watched the second part of the show, everything that followed the Bayley and Alexa match, and I was like, why did I do this to myself?
Yeah.
Like, if they'd ended the show here, or even if they'd ended it before Bayley Alexa, because it wasn't great, this would have been, a really, really good show. So anyway, Bayley versus Alexa for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Bayley showed her new, what?
Just before you go on, doesn't that make total sense about how they pushed the wrong people? As the show went on, and you got higher and higher on the card, the show got worse. Doesn't that make total sense?
I don't watch much of Xavier's gaming channel Up, Down, Down, but the one thing I do watch every week is Battle of the Brands between him and Tyler Breeze, where I think it's SmackDown versus Raw 2006, something like that, and they both book a show. And what they always talk about when they look at the star ratings to see who's done best on the report from the show is how you've got to look for a really well-built show. So you'll see a couple of matches early on with 2 stars, and then Xavier will have Batista Hunter in the main event, and it's got 4.5, and they'll go, really well-built show. This is the exact opposite in WWE. You start off with the best match on the pre-show, and you gradually work to the worst match in the main event. It's the opposite of what you meant to do.
It's almost like they push the wrong people.
Yeah.
Heyman, save us.
So Bayley showed her new aggressive streak early to take control, but Alexa soon got the heat. Bayley eventually fought back and ran wild, landing a couple of knee strikes. Alexa powders and Bayley gives chase, but ends up being pulled into the post. She focuses the second heat segment onto the arm until Bayley caught her with the Saito for 2. Bayley followed with the sunset flip into the buckles. Bliss rolled out and Nikki came to check on her. Bayley went for a tope suicida, but Nikki pushes Alexa out of the way and took the bullet for our friend. Bayley charges, but Alexa moves and Bayley goes into the steel steps. She follows up with a code red on Bayley on the floor. Back in, and Alexa heads up top, but Nikki rolls in to attack Bayley. The ref cuts her off, but the distraction allows Bayley to scale up to the top. Alexa knocks her back down and goes for Twisted Bliss, but Bayley gets the knees up and hits a Bayley to belly for the win. Post-match, Bayley pushes Nikki when she tends to Alexa for some reason. I didn't like that. Nope. I don't mind Bayley showing a new aggressive streak.
But don't be a heel.
But, like, Nikki was just tending to her friend, and the only reason she came in to attack Bayley during the match anyway, which actually, in the long run, ended up helping Bayley out, was because Bayley had wiped her out with a suicide dive. Unintentionally, granted.
But it made sense.
It made sense, like, for Bayley then to just stand there and, like, it was a very heel thing to do, and I didn't like that bit of it.
No, I agree.
When Nikki comforts her clearly annoyed Alexa. This was not good. It was okay.
But it was never good.
It was the worst match on the show up to this point.
Like, Alexa is not a great wrestler. It's her act that more than makes up for her lack of being a good wrestler.
And you know what? Bayley and Alexa do not have chemistry. We've seen this.
Every match they've had has been bad.
Yeah.
Even in NXT.
I'd argue this was probably the best match they've ever had.
But in NXT they had bad matches too.
And
Bayley was at her peak.
But you know what? At least it built the story. You continued the split that's eventually going to come between Alexa and Nikki. You know, you kept Bayley looking strong with winning the match. Keep showing our new aggressive streak. They put over on commentary how this is a new Bayley. She took advantage of the situation when Nikki got involved. You know, everything you should be doing if you are sort of evolving this Bayley character. So they did everything right in the match. The match just wasn't that great.
Agreed.
So Ricochet is doing a photo shoot with his new title. Gallows and Anderson arrive, congratulate him and join in, throwing up 2 sweets and trying to get Ricochet to do the same to his mild annoyance. AJ arrives and joins in too before saying he will see Ricochet tomorrow. And in my notes I've literally wrote the word awesome because Ricochet versus AJ.
And it was.
And it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I imagine they've got more in the tank, which they absolutely should do. You shouldn't go balls out in your first match on main event of Raw with no title on the line.
Agreed.
But if they go balls out at Money in the Bank, Extreme Rules,
could be like a
would be
WWE
great.
match. Could be WWE match.
Do you remember what was the company we booked where we booked a company called UWA where we envisaged a world where Shane McMahon had all this money and decided to compete with his father, and we and it was a couple of years ago, so it was before AEW, it was before New Japan got big up here.
Most of our roster was like
most
NXT
of our rosters either in NXT or AEW now when you look at it.
Hey, aren't we
but
clever?
The big thing that we did is we put Ricochet and AJ together as a tag team and built them up as like this sort of babyface tag team,
like a mentor.
And then Ricochet turned on AJ
and joined a heel group with Adam Cole?
Yeah, I think so.
Because Cole was the leader.
because we did like a Four Horsemen sort of rip-off almost,
Yeah.
With Adam Cole as leader. Funny that, isn't it? Doing a Four Horsemen rip-off with Adam Cole as leader. Gee, I wonder where that's happening now.
Know.
Strange, that.
I don't know, but like, it's undisputed.
Yeah, you could see they've got some kind of era going on, but
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, we will move on because we've got to get through the rest of this show, and the rest of this show is shocking.
Shock the system.
So now Alexa and Bayley was not the greatest match ever, as we've just said, and was probably the weakest on the show up until this point, but it was still okay. So this was the point where I went to bed, and boy, did the show fall off a cliff from here on out, starting with Roman versus Drew. Roman got a somewhat mixed reaction, but to his fans, man, he was over. Like, the people who were cheering for him were living and dying with Roman Reigns.
But Roman should be over because they've done good work with him. Like, if you're booing Roman now, I just don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, I am not Roman's biggest fan, but like, if Roman Reigns comes out now, like, I am not booing that man. He's done nothing that makes me want to boo him. He's always been a decent wrestler.
Yeah.
But he's now being booked well.
Yeah.
Like, he really is.
No, totally agree.
There's no reason to boo him anymore other than just being one of those people that just likes to go to a wrestling match and ruin things.
But you know what? Like, I know you've just went on a rant about you shouldn't be booing Roman. But in this scenario, I do kind of get it because I would just boo everybody involved with this angle because it's just Shane.
But I'd boo everybody involved with most of the company in that case, though. Man. Like you can't. I get not being like, yeah, Roman. Like, I get that, but like, don't boo him.
Well, I don't know. I know what you're saying about like look at everything else in the company, but you know, every match up until this point, even Alexa Bayley, I was kind of interested in. When I saw Roman, Drew, and Shane coming out, I just groaned when I watched it the next day. It is Shane. It's not Roman, and it's not even really Drew. I find Drew very bland, but it's not even really Drew. It's just the Shane of it all. Anyway, Roman hit the Undertaker dive early, but he chased Shane through the crowd, and when they came back to the ringside area, Drew slammed him into the ring steps. Drew got the heat as Shane kept getting involved. Roman fought back, but Shane got involved and Drew retook control. Drew gets a regal stretch variant of the STF locked on and Shane teases a Montreal finish. In 2019, 22 years after the fact, we're still teasing Montreal finishes. Just stop. But Roman fights out and hits a Samoan drop. Reigns fires up and takes out Drew and Shane. He goes for the drive-by, but Drew avoids it and hits the reverse Alabama slam on the announce table. Back in, they head up top and Drew hits a superplex for 2. He goes for the Claymore, but Roman avoids it and gets a backslide for 2. Drew heads up top but gets caught with a Superman punch for 2. Roman hits a spear, but at 2, Shane attempts to pull the ref out, but somehow he managed to be late and Drew actually had to kick out. Anyway.
Bad.
So he pulled the ref out after Drew had already kicked out. Shane then hit the coast to coast on Roman and gets the ref, but Roman kicks out at 2 as the crowd really popped for that kick out. So, you know, as much as I hated this match, I guess it worked for some people because they really popped for that kick out.
Meltzer loved it.
Drew
I liked it.
Yeah, well, I think Meltzer's a massive fan of both Drew and Roman as wrestlers, which, fair play to him. I find Roman okay, but not great in the ring, and I find Drew...
Roman's like 7 out of 10 for me.
Blandest of bland. I'd say I would go probably 6.
Yeah.
And Drew's just the blandest of bland. There's nothing wrong with him. He just bores me to tears.
Yeah, he's 99 Hunter without everything that made Hunter so cool.
Yeah. So Shane tries, Drew goes for the Claymore again, but Roman counters with the Superman punch, and then Shane tries to attack immediately, but Roman sends him to the outside and hits the spear on Drew for the win. This was not good at all.
A lot of Shane. I heard you mention Shane a lot there.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Like, bad.
It's almost like there's too much Shane in this company as a whole.
Like, again, we'll cover it. I can't remember whether it was on Raw or SmackDown, but I will have it in my notes, but... There was something like, I can't remember whether they were chanting "Go Home Shane" or "No More Shane" or something like that. It was just, it's bad.
I saw someone on Twitter say, do you remember how they used to take the mickey out of WCW for having people in their main event that they classed as like old past it?
At least they were trained wrestlers.
15 years older than those people now.
And at least he was trained.
Yeah.
Like at least they were trained rather.
Has Shane actually ever been trained?
No. He just kind of got in the ring one day.
Genuinely, has Shane never gone through wrestling training?
He's never, well, he will have done with like the lads and stuff, but he's never gone to a wrestling school and learned how to work.
Yeah.
He's just got in there and worked with like...
Jumped off things.
X-Pac. And like, I'm not being funny, mate. I'm pretty sure in 1998, 1999, me and you could have gotten the... Well, maybe not me and you because we would have been 6, but like... Me and you now could have got in the ring in 98 with X-Pac and had a good match with him because it was almost impossible to have a bad match with X-Pac.
Because he was one of the best workers in America at that point.
Yeah. So next up we had the steel cage match for the WWE Championship as Kofi Kingston defended against Dolph Ziggler. Dolph went for the super kick immediately and Kofi responded with an attempt at Trouble in Paradise. Dolph got control and beat down Kofi for an absolute age. They both tried to climb out and Kofi slammed Ziggler's face into the cage, sending him to the mat. He continued to climb but then hit a crossbody where he dropped from the top of the cage and kind of like springboarded off the top ropes, which was quite cool, and got 2. They fought on top of the cage but eventually battled back in. Kofi hit the SOS for 2. He went for Trouble in Paradise, but Dolph countered and went after Kofi's knee. He locked on a heel hook. Yes, he locked on a heel hook. And no, if you watched it, it might not have looked like a heel hook, but I swear to you, it was meant to be a heel hook. Anyway, Kofi gets to the ropes, and unlike the last cage match, there is no rope break, but Corey suffers from cold disease as he screams, "There are no disqualifications in cage matches." What does a rope break have to do with the disqualification?
I just wish they'd make, can they make this rule, change clear? Yeah. Because they've just suddenly changed their own rules.
Yeah. So Kofi climbs even though Dolph still has the leg, but Ziggler pulls him back down and hits the super kick, but Kofi falls into the doorway and halfway out of the cage. Dolph locks the heel hook back on though and drags Kofi back in. Kofi fights out and goes for Trouble in Paradise, but Dolph catches him in an ankle lock this time. Kofi transitions into his own ankle lock, but Dolph kicks him off and hits a zigzag for 2. Dolph goes for the super kick, but Kofi counters and catches Dolph in a grounded front chancery, but Dolph tries to climb out of the door even in the chancery. Dolph avoided a suplex and tried to climb out again, but Kofi pulled him back in again. Dolph kicks him off and starts to climb through the door, but as he's about halfway out of the door, Kofi suicide dives out over the top of him out of the door to the floor. I like the finish. It was different, but the match overall, whilst not bad in any way, like technically it was, oh my God, it was so boring.
Boring match, cool finish.
Yeah.
It's literally a boring match, cool finish. Different finish, like the idea. If you're going to do an escape victory, that's a cool way to do it.
The only thing I will say is, and I don't want to, like, it was cool.
It's not the babyface way to win, is it?
It's not even that. It's like, you've just ruined every cage match ever. Because, like, you know, all the guys slow climbing out. All you've got to do now is do a Kofi and just jump up like you've not been hurt at all and just run towards the cage door and suicide dive out.
Adrenaline, I guess, would be.
I know, but why would every babyface not have that adrenaline at that point in the match?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Point. So, like Money in the Bank ladder match, why do your legs not just suddenly work?
Yeah. Why is Kofi, every time he's been in Money in the Bank ladder match, not all of a sudden got that burst of adrenaline he got here and scaled his way at the top faster than anything else?
Yeah.
Like, it was a cool finish, and you can explain it away. That was the one bit of it where I went...
You're being slightly picky, but I'm okay with that.
So, Rude interviewer interviews Kofi on the stage after the match. He says Dolph is a hell of a competitor, but he said he would walk out WWE champion, and he did just that. And then Kayla interviews Drew, or at least tries to, but before she can really get anywhere, Shane tips up and asks Drew if he wants Roman. Drew says yes, so Shane says we'll see him and Drew versus Roman in a handicap match tomorrow, and we'll see that it's really Shane's yard. Joy.
Hooray! More Shane.
And now it is time for our main event of the evening. Now, we try, as I've said before, we try not to talk star ratings on this show. But Seth Rollins made a point of going out there on Twitter saying he has the best matches in the world. And I've always said I rate wrestling matches that I watch to try and keep them in some kind of order so I can do my top 50 matches at the end of the year. And this is the first time in my life, because I don't like giving this rating out because I think every match usually has some form of redeeming quality. This is the first time I've ever given a dud rating.
A 0-star match.
Yeah. It was awful.
Yeah.
From start to finish.
-5 stars.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. God, Victory Road 09.
Mr. Brian Alvarez.
Yes, with what was it, Charmel versus Jenna Maraska, was that her name?
Yeah.
Jenna from Survivor.
Let's go with yes.
Yeah. Awful.
Yeah.
So that is still my favourite botchamania of all time. Yeah. Like, that is just the pinnacle of botchamania.
Do you not kind of miss TNA? Like,
but what bad TNA?
Like, there's things about it. It was never boring. Like,
no, there was certain points where it was boring, but when it was bad and entertaining. Look, you got to remember, I'm part of a forum on the internet where we had like a 200-page thread for the Impact spoilers, the time when they tried to like swerve everybody by filming fake stuff, and they announced that there was going to be Al Snow versus Gail Kim in a scaffold match. And I think Abyss in a Monsters Ball match against a woman as well. It was just like, it was one of the best spoiler threads I've ever been a part of in my entire life.
Genuinely, so, I'll just say it now before we move on. So remember, like, Impact Wrestling is really good now. If you don't watch it, you need to. It is really
absolutely
good.
Should, yeah.
Anyway.
So, Seth versus Baron. Rollins comes out with a chair and insinuates he's going to take out Corbin's special guest ref, but then Corbin announces it's Lacey Evans, so being the good person he is, Seth now can't hit a woman with a chair. All of a sudden, mind you, all the Becky Seth stuff on TV at least makes sense. You know, we've been kind of like complaining about, oh God, why have they got to reference this real life stuff for no apparent reason when it doesn't really add any value? At least it now makes sense.
It just sucks.
It was building to Lacey being the special guest ref.
It just sucks.
Yeah, but at least it's logical. Let's give them that.
Yeah, I agree.
So Lacey tries to take the chair from Rollins, which allows Corbin to beat him down before using the chair. Eventually, the bell rings. The crowd hates this and makes their feelings known, and I don't blame them.
So let's go through the chants. Like, what were the chants?
Well, they chanted AEW, they chanted CM Punk. The biggest, I think the loudest one I remember was very close to the start of the match. They chanted, "This is stupid," very loudly.
Yeah.
You know, considering there was only like 3,000 people there or whatever, or 5,000 people, because they closed half the arena off.
Because they couldn't sell tickets because it was a rubber show.
Despite the fact that they ended up giving them away at a mall before the show, but whatever. Yeah.
Do we pay tickets?
Yeah.
It's not a good sign.
This is New Japan in 2005. Paper in the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, Corbin grinds Rollins down for ages. Rollins fights back a couple of times, eventually getting the upper hand with a sling blade. He hits the blockbuster and then a tope suicida. He hits a springboard knee strike and a super kick, but Lacey takes her time to get down and then slow counts, allowing Corbin to kick out. Rollins powerbombs Corbin through the announce table. He gets back in and asks Lacey to count. She does, albeit slowly, and then at 8 tells the announcer there are no countouts. Since when did the refs have the power to change the rules?
They don't.
They don't.
They don't.
So why does the special guest referee have the power to change the rules to a match?
Unless we are literally going down the sort of red shoes angle of like, red shoes allows more in a championship match.
No, but that's...
I'm not defending this. You're looking like I'm defending this.
Because that's different, because with red shoes, at least they're going...
consistent as well.
Sometimes he'll refuse to count a pin because somebody's cheated. He doesn't want a DQ because it's a big match.
Yeah.
But he won't count the pinfall because you've cheated and he's not allowing you to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
That to me makes sense. That is part of his remit as a referee. He gets to decide if Lacey just stopped counting and said, I don't think it's fair you powerbombed him through that table, so I refuse to count right now. That would be one thing. It'd kind of be weird because she's being heelish, but, that would be one thing.
Uh-huh.
But actively going out and telling the announcer that there are now no countouts in this match.
Yeah.
what? You can't just change the rules.
And who gave her the authority?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we are the authority, apparently, so I suppose we gave her it.
Oh, yeah, because...
Remember that promo?
There's a new era.
Is there?
There's been about five of them since, but that was a new era.
So Rollins sets up for the stomp, but Corbin powders. He catches a tope suicida attempt and hits a chokeslam on the apron before one in the ring, which gets two. They fight back and forth until Seth lands a super kick and a Montez Ford-esque high fly floor. Like, seriously, Montez Ford would have been proud of that. The height he got on it. Lacey slowly counts one and then two, but then sells her shoulder and won't count the three. Baron gets a chair and beats Rollins down with it as Lacey stands by and does nothing. Lacey makes the ring announcer say this is now... She makes the ring announcer say this is now no DQ. At this point in my notes, I've literally wrote, this is death.
What? Like it was bad watching it, but as you're reading it through, like I'm reimagining it, and it's just like...
when I'm listening to myself read this through, it reminds me when I listen to the Retro Raw Nitro podcast and Vinny's recapping
what is this?
Particularly bad segment on Nitro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what is this rubbish?
So Rollins hits the Falcon Arrow on the chair, but Lacey simply refuses to count this time. Cole says this...
So it's actually getting funnier.
Yeah. Cole says this is a farce. And you know what? He's not wrong. Yeah. Like, Michael Cole is completely accurate with that statement.
Cole's going, why have you bought this rubbish?
So Seth fumes at Lacey, who slaps him. So he screams at her, and she slaps him again. She kicks him in the midsection, but Seth then thwarts a Baron attack, only for Lacey to low blow him from behind. Corbin hits End of Days, but mercifully, Becky arrives to attack Lacey. Thank the Lord. Some officials come down to separate them, and Corbin calls one of them into the ring. He realises it's the referee he argued with at Saudi Money. The distraction allows Rollins to hit a super kick and the stomp for the win, and mercifully, this is over. What an all-time awful main event. This is so bad.
Was
bad.
It like Mabel Diesel? Are we at that point, Mabel Diesel?
I think it might have been worse,
because the booking was worse.
Like, in terms of like the actual work, it was better.
But
when they were actually wrestling, Corbin versus Rollins was better than Mabel versus Diesel. But because of all the, I don't know how to say this without swearing, because of all the nonsense,
there you go,
rubbish, and
there were
just
other words beginning
stupid.
with B that we could use to describe.
Well, I was going with an F word with "uri" on the end.
Oh yeah.
But
that works.
Yeah. It's just awful.
Because of all the bleep, 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 bleep.
Yeah. Becky and Seth celebrate as the show goes off the air.
Celebrate?
God. Yeah. Well, they did. They kissed and hugged and held the titles up. And
at which point a caption came along the bottom of, if you bought this pay-per-view, you loser, use a live stream next time.
Yeah. So... Hey, I pay for the network. Can you stop insulting me?
Do we need to start coining LOL WWE? It was used to be LOL TNA.
I don't know, but
have we got to that point?
I'd appreciate it if you stopped mocking my financial choices. Thank you very much. So this was a bipolar show. An undercard that delivered in spades, but it absolutely died in the final three matches. Overall, I guess it was a decent to even maybe a good show, but I can't help but end feeling like it was pretty rubbish because of how bad the end of the show was.
And do we talk attendance now?
Yeah, we can talk attendance.
So
we might as well talk Raw and SmackDown attendance as well because they were even worse.
Right. So they had to cover about half of the arena.
Yeah. Alvarez did say the crowd at the pay-per-view was better than he thought it was going to be. It was still bad, but it was better than he expected.
But they had to cover up about half the arena with black fabric.
Yeah.
Because they'd sold so little tickets and they papered.
Yeah.
Like,
and then
Meltzer has said like these drops in attendance and these drops in viewing figures for Raw and SmackDown. Like he said at first that it was just like a down period, but now he's like, this is like he said on the Observer, like this is genuinely concerning. Like this is bad. Like, this is bad.
I've not heard Meltzer talk about the attendance.
I
must have missed that show. But
I'll find it.
The one thing I will say is, you know, when people talk about, you can tell in 2000 WCW's going down the toilet because if you just look at the ratings, it's slipping, and I'm like, but you got to remember, like, they were still drawing pretty well through the majority of 2000,
ECW
even into 2001. Like in terms of ratings, where you can tell they were falling off a cliff. Where you can tell earlier is actually the attendance went before the ratings went.
Yeah,
you know, they went from drawing like, do you remember on like what 3 days notice
Georgia
from Thunder, they got 40,000 in the Georgia Dome for Goldberg versus Hogan.
It out if they'd done it on pay-per-view at the Georgia Dome, and done millions.
But that was just
millions.
for a Nitro on 3 days' notice. They managed to sell 40,000 tickets in the Georgia Dome. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And you fast forward to 2000, and they were really, really struggling to draw for Nitro. We're seeing the same thing with like Raw. Like Meltzer, I did hear Meltzer talk about the Raw attendance because he said he thought it was what he would expect from a house show in the area. Well, and that's not good for a Raw TV
would you
team.
go to Raw?
SmackDown's attendance was then even worse.
But this suck. Why would you go?
We'll get into it, but I thought Raw was pretty good this week.
On the whole.
On the whole, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've been conditioned over the last 6 months to expect nothing but on the whole utter drivel. And Shane.
Yeah. Well, he is the epitome of drivel.
He's king drivel.
Yeah. So we will move on to any other business now. Only a few things to talk about. Joey Janela versus John Moxley from tonight's AEW show. Fighter Fest is now non-sanctioned.
Unsanctioned match.
So God knows how wild that one is. You know how insane Joey Janela is. And for anybody who only knows John Moxley from his latest New Japan run, his AEW run, and his WWE run as Dean Ambrose.
He used to do some fairly crazy stuff.
John Moxley is one crazy bleep. That's all I'm saying.
Bad dude.
He's got some serious, problems sometimes, I think, when I see what he does in the ring. So this could be absolutely insane.
Violent.
Very violent, yeah. Tessa Blanchard versus Sami Callihan is official for Slammiversary. And you know what? I'm really looking forward to that match.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
But I'm going to say, like, she is the best thing about Impact.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how far they're going to go down the whole route of an agenda. If they are going to go like full on with it, like, I'm not being funny.
She's the absolute. You should put the belt on her.
Put the belt on her. She is the best wrestler they have. She's one of the best wrestlers, just one of the best wrestlers in North America. She is out of this world. She's brilliant. I am one of the biggest Tessa Blanchard fans you'll see going. She is unreal.
Fully on board with you there,
She should win. Like, totally she should win. It's been a really good feud as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it. Like,
yeah,
I've
really seen
good.
bits and pieces. I've not seen as much of it as I'd like because, like I say, the time just does not allow me to watch Impact every week. But
like, I actually keep up. I watch the YouTube segments. Like, I keep up with what's happening. It's been really good. Put the belt on her.
So we will just talk a little bit about the show that is, I believe, just ended in Australia, the New Japan show. So Will Ospreay has successfully defeated Robbie Eagles to retain his IWGP Junior Heavyweight title match. Like, we obviously haven't seen the show because it's literally just finished we're recording this. But by the looks of the reports I'm seeing, apparently it was very good and the best thing on the show, but maybe like a step short of their match from Best of Super Juniors, which was phenomenal. So there's nothing wrong with that. And Okada and Tanahashi defeated Jay White and Bad Luck Fale in the main event.
Cool.
So
I'll check it out.
Yeah, that's all really from that show. El Phantasmo retained the Rev Pro British Cruiserweight Championship, but there's nothing really massive on that show. And the only thing we've really got left to talk about in any other business is ROH's second biggest show of the year aired last night. And I'm not being funny, I cannot believe, like, when we started this podcast, we were talking about what do we do in terms of like special events, because obviously we were planning on doing a weekly podcast talking about the weekly shows, but what do we do about the special
Final
events,
segments,
the pay-per-views and stuff like that? So we said we would always do special pay-per-view episodes like this for every WWE pay-per-view, because it is the biggest company in the world. We'd do special ones for AEW's big shows, so we're not doing it for Fighter Fest, we won't be doing it for Fight for the Fallen, we'll absolutely be doing it for All Out. and would just sort of recap lesser pay-per-views. So like the Slammiversary will probably only get a recap in any other business. Most ROH shows will only get a recap in any other business. But in my mind, stuff like Best in the World and Final Battle would absolutely get a full show recap. I didn't even consider it for this because ROH has fallen off a cliff. Yeah,
it's what I think this is like coming up. We need to do this as a full ending segment.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
like Ring of Honor has just collapsed,
and I will always have such a soft spot for them because for so long they were my favorite company in the world. I credit them with saving my wrestling fandom at several different periods of history when I've fallen out of love with everything else. But it's not good at the moment.
It's not good. There's nothing. No. Why would you?
And
watch
you know
it?
what?
There's nothing good.
As a company, I don't like them as well. Like not just they've
lost a lot of goodwill.
Yeah, even like in the when we were going through the Clone Wars when Cornette was booking. I didn't like the product, but I didn't hate the company. Like I just wanted the product to be better. Now I want the product to be better, and I want the company to be better.
Like, did you see how I think it was WWE invited?
Yeah, the fan that we talked about a few weeks ago, who had the incident with Bully Ray. Yeah, it was Owens, wasn't it?
Yeah, Owens and Zayn, I believe.
Yeah,
no, it wasn't just Owens.
I think it was just Owens. Yeah, got him front row tickets to the SmackDown show. this week, which probably wasn't that difficult given attendance. He seemed to enjoy the show.
Like, can you imagine though? I don't want this.
So Best in the World anyway. So we'll just go through the results because it is a big show. Roosh defeated Flip Gordon on the pre-show, which was a kind of...
How's that on the pre-show?
They had an idea of, I don't think the buys for this have been great. So what the idea was, they did this for free for everyone. It was originally meant to be on the main card, but they did this for everybody and heavily plugged the show to try and get people to buy it. I don't have an issue with that really. It's not like it was it wasn't the best match on the show. Yeah. So, but Flip got a lot more offense than most people have been getting against Roosh, but Roosh still won. And then Dalton Castle defeated Dragon Lee, and what I heard was a really, really good match. Castle still looks broken down as hell. Like I've seen pictures of he's got new gear. And like his trunks are really high. I think they try and like hide his back brace and stuff like that because he's just not in a good place physically, which is a real shame. And then the one really bad match I heard, but like I say, I haven't seen the show, so I'm going by what people have said. But the one really bad match on the show was the allure of Angelina Love and Mandy Leon defeating Jenny Rose and Kelly Klein. I've heard that was not good at all.
I can't. I mean, the beautiful people. I mean, it's a 10-year-old, well, 15. Well, not 15, but like a 13-year-old angle that.
Yeah, and the one like Angelina's the only one that could ever work anyway.
Yeah,
but next up,
Mandy was only ever decent. She's only ever been decent. Best.
Mandy's not great at all. Like I'd say, like she's worse than Velvet, and Velvet's bad. Anyway, best of three series match number 3. Kenny King defeated Jay Lethal to win the best of 3 series. I've heard that's been really good. I've really fallen out of keeping up with Ring of Honor, but I've heard the whole series has been really good, and I heard this match was really good. And then I heard divisive sort of reports about the next match, which I totally get because of the type of match it is. Jonathan Gresham defeated Silas Young in a Pure Rules match. I've seen people that absolutely raved about this match. I've seen people that said it was slow and boring. I imagine, like I say, I haven't seen it. I imagine I would have absolutely loved this match.
Yeah, that sounds like very much up my street. That.
Yeah, because it was Pure Rules. Did you see all the rules that they did for it? It was very much like the Pure title. You had 3 rope breaks.
They need to bring it back. They need to bring it back. It would be something different. And God knows at the moment, Ring of Honor needs different stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
And you know what? Jonathan Gresham is the perfect person to build the Pure division around because he is so good at that style.
He'd be the Bryan Danielson.
Yeah. I heard a lot of people surprised at how good Silas was at the style though as well.
Yeah, no, I can. He's a good worker.
Yeah, he is a good worker, but
good worker can work that style.
I don't know. I think that's a very specific style.
Like Nigel was amazing at it.
Yeah, but Nigel was really good at that style, and Brian was really good at that style. Somebody like I don't think Rollins could work a Pure Rules match very well, personally, and I think he's one of the best workers in the world.
They tend to be like more grounded wrestlers, don't they?
Yeah,
like Regal. Like Regal would be like the ultimate Pure Rules champion.
If you're good at shoot style, you'll be good at Pure Rules. It is different, but if you're good at shoot style type wrestling, somebody like an Aleister Black or a Daniel Bryan. Well, yeah, I know, but I wanted to get his current name.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
It's just like sometimes I lapse back into calling him Tommy End. Yeah. Anyway. So next up we had a tag team match between Eli Drake and Nick Aldis and the Briscoe brothers, which went to a double count out, but by all accounts was a pretty good match, and the brawled in the crowd. James Storm got involved after the match as well because he's feuding with Nick Aldis, so seemed like good stuff there. And then what was apparently match of the night, in a total shock to me, the World Television title is Shane Taylor defended against Bandido. Apparently that was absolutely fantastic, and they had a really, really good big man, little man match. You know, quietly, Shane Taylor apparently is becoming really good. Like, I always thought he was just a big kind of fat guy who was okay but not great.
Yeah.
But I don't know was it the anniversary show, the last ROH show I properly sat down and watched? He had a really good match on that show as well.
Last ROH match or anything I saw was
Final Battle?
No, well, technically, Madison Square Garden. And
sorry. Well, MSG was after the anniversary show. Yeah. So next up we had the ROH World 6-Man Tag Team title as Villain Enterprises defeated Mark Haskins, PJ Black and Tracy Williams. And we got an interesting
needs to get out of there.
We got an interesting post-match because we had a situation where apparently on TV they've been building up Flip Gordon joining Lifeblood for ages and ages and ages. And then Sons of Savagery or Soldiers of Savagery, or there's some new group with two people I don't know, came down to attack Lifeblood after the match, and Flip Gordon made the save, but then turned on Lifeblood and is the new member of Villain Enterprises, which is quite interesting. Marty and Flip Take Japan is back, except they're not taking Japan, they're just taking the United States, but still.
That in no way fits to me.
Nah, I can see Marty and Flip together.
I can't see Flip as a hit like a...
I
they're
can.
They're not heels, are they, Villain Enterprises?
The tweeners.
I just can't see it.
Yeah. And then in a match that was apparently cut short because they were running long on time, Matt Taven successfully defended the ROH World Championship against Jeff Cobb. He won the match in 9 minutes. Like,
oh my God, that's awful.
Like, Jeff Cobb should be winning that belt. He should be their champion right now.
Come on.
The one thing I will say in defense of them, I think they're putting all their eggs in the Roosh basket and they're building him to be this unstoppable machine. He's beaten everybody really quick. Flip Gordon got 10 minutes against him.
Try not to bury your whole company while you do that.
No, but I think Roosh is the guy who beats Matt Taven to win and becomes now their man, their guy to build the company around, which is fine. Roosh is super charismatic.
You know, if you were like Roosh and Bandido, like, remember, like, we talked about, like...
AEW.
I'd
wish I'd waited and signed with AEW.
My God, how stupid would you feel if you'd signed with Ring of Honor and not AEW right now?
And it makes me sad to say that. It really, really does.
How stupid would you feel?
Yeah. And you know what? They've still got a really good roster. They've just got to book better and they've got to make people feel like stars because they've got a lot of talent in there, but not a lot of people that
feel like anything.
Like Jeff Cobb feels like somebody. Marty Scurll feels like somebody. Outside that, who've they really got?
Does Lethal still feel?
Lethal does, but like he's in the mid card at the minute because you need to keep him away from the main event for a while because it'll just get stale if you keep him up there too long.
Yep.
So in terms of guys you can put up there, but they've got really good talent. Mark Haskins, Bandido, Tracy Williams is fantastic. PJ Black's really good. Eli Drake's going to be working with them. Kenny King's really talented. Jonathan Gresham's fantastic. They've got some really good workers who are very charismatic, but they need to make them feel... They've got the same problem as WWE at the minute in the fact that they've got a lot of talent on their roster, but they can't seem to make them feel like stars for some reason.
Yeah.
The way AEW takes somebody like Goldust, who to me is done... makes him feel like an absolute superstar. Cody, who I've never been a massive fan of, makes him feel like an absolute superstar. Darby Allin, they made him feel like a star in a 5-minute
perfect example
thing on Road to Fighter Fest. They did the same thing with Private Party last week.
The absolute perfect example is MJF.
MLW made him feel like a star as well, though. So
but I hadn't seen him.
Yeah, but in one,
I remember saying
the rally.
I remember saying that I'd seen him on Evolve.
Yeah.
A couple of months ago, and after we did the podcast, I was like, I've never seen him on Evolve. Why did I say that? Yeah. I'd never really seen very much of him, if anything. And within about a couple of weeks, he felt like a star to me because of everything that they've done. Mm-hmm. Because I just remember
after the rally, you'd not really seen him cut a promo before, and you were like, dude, this guy's a star. Yeah. And that was just at a rally to announce that All Out was happening.
I was just like, man, walking, talking charisma.
Yeah.
He needs to be a heel champ in AEW.
Without doubt. They've got to build him to that, definitely.
Yeah.
So that does it for any of the business, and we will move on to the final segment, which is going to make me very happy and Jonathan very sad. It was 8-5 heading into this show. It is now 8-6, and I am on the comeback trail as I promised on the last podcast.
Boo.
So we both went for Seth, we were both right. We both went for Becky, we were both right. We both went for Kofi, we were both right. We both went for Bayley, we were both right. We both went for Ricochet, we were both wrong.
We both went for Joe, we were both wrong.
We both went for Joe, we were both wrong. We both went for Daniel Bryan and Rowan. We were both right. We both went for Roman Reigns. We were both right. And then the two that made the difference, you went for New Day and I went for Steen Eriko and I was correct. And you went for Tony Nese and I went for Drew Gulak and I was correct. So I take the victory on this one.
I'm happy at the ones I got wrong, mind. Must be
Yeah,
honest.
me too. Well, I'm glad you got them wrong.
Yeah, I
I
thought
won.
you would be. Don't you do the smug thing now. The smug thing's my thing.
I'm coming back. I'm coming back, baby.
And better than ever.
I'm back.
I'm going to sing that 1,000 times when we do the podcast later on, when we talk
Smashing.
about Bischoff.
Is this before or after we have the vino I've promised you later on?
It's around the time where we get done for copyright, funnily enough.
I think you're allowed to sing.
Can I?
I think you're allowed to sing.
So can I hum the ECW theme as well?
Yes, I think you can. As long as you don't play it. I'll Google that while you go and pick the missus up. Anyway, we've got to get out of here because Jonathan's got to go and pick his wife up.
I do.
So we will see you, well, for us, we will see you in a couple of hours when we start recording the next podcast, but we will see you when both go up, whenever I get them edited. So we will be back. We will talk Raw, SmackDown, all the usual stuff. Is there anything you'd like to add on this podcast before we go? Anything you can't wait 2 hours to say?
I'm going to go.
We're out of time. We will see you later on the Two Man Booth.